summer 1925, and Milo had paid off Thomas's other debts with her father's money. When she found out about them, the debt he had from when he had tried to be a black marketeer, the one from the pub in York, where he used to go every so often to drown his sorrows, particularly after Ernest had died, the bill he had run up at the tailor's at Thirsk. Thomas Barrow felt like a bastard, a messed up, evil person, to do that to Milo, after everything, just because he had been too cowardly to accept she had moved on. And now she had left him, no letters, no telephone calls. And he sat, in the room he had been since becoming footman, since the blessed Russian refugees were still in Milo's old house, looking at the letters which had been returned to him, which Thomas had sent, and unknown that this address had been written back on. Of course, he had phoned Cambridge, and the Cavendish, only to be told by Chadwick, in Rutherford's absence, that he was delighted to tell him Milo had arrived at the home of Frau Planck and had settled into her research. He placed the letters back in his drawer, and closed it again. He would not give up, Thomas told himself. He would not stop writing to her. Light glinted into the drawer and Thomas moved the envelopes, to see the beautiful opal necklace that was sitting in there. Milo had asked him to keep it safe for her, with her wedding ring, once her mother's, and her lavalier watch which he had asked his brother, Henry, to make specially for her. All there, in his safe keeping, with his father's watch. And tears began to stream down Thomas's face when he imagined Milo, just a few years ago, persisting with Henry, to get the watch going, a feat which Thomas, and his father before him, had considered impossible. He closed the drawer, quickly, looking as the last show of colors from the opals dipped away. Thomas had even tried sending them, once thought to be paste and glue, but which Milo had determined were genuine. Thomas thought that this time, a view of the necklace, and his shameful act would have been forgiven. But, instead, they had been rewrapped, and sent back to him, in such a manner which showed both care and callousness. What was she going now, then? In Germany? Thomas imagined Milo standing in a laboratory, much the same as she had done at the Cavendish. Only, German would be being spoken. And what actually would she be doing? Thomas had risked a letter overseas, feeling like the biggest traitor when he shaped the words, Kaiser Wilhelm Institute. But, as the ones to Cambridge, it had been returned to him, and it was now in his drawer. 88,888,888 and Milo had travelled from Göttingen with Heisenberg to hear Erwin Schrödinger lecture on his equation in Munich. Werner Heisenberg was the only person to stand up to the man, giving his opposing views, linking to his uncertainty principle, linking to quantum mechanics. She comforted him, afterwards, for Schrödinger should not have spoken to him that way. What did it matter that H.B. was not poetic, did not know much about ancient Egypt? They were there to talk about physics. It was if Lady Violet had, in male form, come to Munich as a physicist, only accepting self-affirming praise, and condemning the rest. No, thought Milo. Even she wasn't as bad as Schrödinger had been. Although he reminded Milo of Patrick Blackett, self-confident, suave, sophisticated. And he knew it. We made the trip specially, he lamented, as they got on the last train back north, overnight to the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute. And it was worth it, Milo told him, taking his hand comfortingly. He was rude, he was bad-mannered, uncouth. He did not respect your point of view, and, she stopped as the train guard got to their carriage, and asked to see their tickets. H.B. got out his, and Milo followed, listening carefully as the guard spoke, so as not to miss anything. And he was talking to her, and Milo gathered that he wanted to see her passport. She handed it over, and the guard scrutinized it. England are in? He asked her. Milo nodded. Oz England, she told him, as he thrust it back into her hands. Then, he demanded Heisenberg get out of the train compartment, which he did, and closed the sliding door behind him. Milo could not hear what was being said, but the man, older than H.B., was remonstrating with him, his arms flailing in Milo's direction. She could see Heisenberg arguing back, and then turning, opening the compartment door and stepping back in. The guard gave her a scowl, before stamping off up the train. He did not like that I was English, Milo told Heisenberg, who closed the door to the compartment, and stood with his back to it, holding the handle. No, he did not, HB admitted. Will you sit by me again? Milo asked. She had only felt excited in her 2 months of being in Germany and, well, the trip to Munich had been her first journey away from the university. She supposed, like England, feelings about the war ran deep. No, Heisenberg told her, and Milo let him take her hand as he sat back down. That's not it. Not entirely. The man wanted to know whether you were ... whether you were. He glanced to her, and then back out to the corridor. Heiratet? Milo asked. Married. For, though she was Ashby, she had applied for her passport before she was 21. Even Rutherford and Thompson, vouching for her, had advised her to apply as Barrow. No, Liebeln, Heisenberg told her. And Milo thought, Lieblein. It was what he had always called her, since his astonished face when Dirac had pointed out she was a woman. Little love, or little one. And Milo called him HB, HB after the syllables of his name. Haber was what it would be in the German alphabet, but Werner said he preferred HB. It reminds me of happier times, he would tell her, in the not-too-distant future. Now, HB had taken Milo's hand, and now lowered his voice. He wanted to know if your parents or grandparents are Jewish. And it was the first time, in Heisenberg's company, that she had wondered why on earth that mattered so much. No, she replied. My father's parents were Welsh. I never met them. He was born in Yorkshire, so he's English, as am I. My mother was Irish, so were her parents. Christian, not Jewish. HB took her hand, and gripped it reassuringly. Do you know any Jews? Milo turned to look at him. Yes, she admitted. But not really. Lady Grantham, the Countess, at Downton Abbey, yes? Heisenberg asked. Yes. Her father was Jewish. And, Lady Rose, cousin to the family, she has just married a Jewish man, Atticus Aldridge, Milo told him. Though I have not met him. All right, Werner. Heisenberg nodded. And you are no socialist, his mind drifting back to Schrödinger. I did not like the way that he spoke to you, that Austrian, he soothed. Schrödinger? He had tried to charm her, it was true. Very pushy, very insistent. I did nothing to encourage him, Milo added. And he was so rude to you. He should not have made the audience turn on you. He should have given you a respectful hearing. You are a female, Heisenberg told her, grimly. By all accounts, that's all it takes. I did nothing to encourage him, and I didn't like him. HB. Why did you have to go? You know why, he told her. Even if you loathe a man, one must respect science. But waves cannot be the only answer. Sometimes he is a wave, the electron, I must admit. But it does not answer all completely. Does matrix mechanics explain it? Liebeln, HB told her, morosely, even I do not understand matrix mechanics. Milo fell silent, as she thought about Bohr, and the quantum jumps that could be detected as color. One could not exist if the other did. Is there not a compromise? Something that unites the two? Milo asked him. But Heisenberg shook his head, letting go of her hand. I just feel ... unsettled, he declared. The man is so arrogant. It is not, and I tell you it is not, Liebeln, but in my heart I feel it is personal. Then, let it be personal, Milo told him. Do what you can to either extend and link what he knows to something else. This will minimize his wave function, or overturn him, and make him completely furious. Heisenberg turned to Milo, looking at her face, her eagerness, her loveliness. And he took her face, his hands, planting his lips on hers. Milo gasped. It had been the first time since her graduation he had kissed her, but when his hands fell to her body, feeling her waist, her back, Milo pulled away. No, she told him, firmly. Not that, never that. Never that, Liebeln, Heisenberg repeated. He was not Schrödinger. Then he sneezed, feeling the familiar hated itch of hay fever in his nose. He would suffer terribly that year, Heisenberg knew, hoping he had missed it. Though The hay fever would be nowhere near as irritating as Schrödinger had been. I have an uncle who is a keeper on Helgeland, Heisenberg told her. I need to get away, to think. I will speak with Born. Can you fix it with Planck for some time off? I want you to come with me, he smiled. It would be like a holiday. And Milo had barely given Thomas Barrow a thought.